Think women in the ancient Middle East were always silent and powerless? What if I told you that idea is a historical mix-up, and the real story is much more empowering? Let's unravel a piece of history that got completely rewritten. Most of us picture ancient Middle Eastern women as having no rights. But that image doesn't come from the ancient world of Canaan, Phoenicia, or early Aramaic cultures. It actually comes from ancient Rome, and it was projected backward in time. If we look at the evidence from the ancient Near East before Rome's influence became dominant, think 300 BCE and earlier, we see a totally different picture. In these societies, women could own property, run businesses, and sign contracts. They could inherit land and, in some places, even initiate divorce. They weren't just confined to the home. They were active in community life, serving as priestesses, and sometimes even as scribes or administrators. These societies were built on tribal and family networks where everyone's contribution was vital for survival. Women were essential, so their roles were respected and protected by local customs. When we read ancient texts like the Old Testament, we see reflections of this reality. We see Deborah, a judge and military leader. We see the daughters of Zelophehad, who successfully argued for their right to inherit land. We see prophets like Huldah and Miriam, business leaders like the famous Proverbs 31 woman, and skilled diplomats like Abigail. These aren't exceptions to the rule. They are examples of the rule in their original cultural context. So where did the story get twisted? The shift happened with the rise of the Roman Empire. Roman society was intensely patriarchal. Roman women had far fewer rights. They couldn't vote, hold office, or even control their own finances without a male guardian. They were legally considered minors, always under the authority of a father, husband, or other male relative. This was the world the early church grew up in. When Christianity became intertwined with the Roman Empire in the 4th century, the church started to absorb Roman social structures. Roman ideas about gender like female silence in public, restrictions on leadership, and the concept of male guardianship began to merge with religious interpretation. These were Roman cultural norms, not ancient Near Eastern ones. But as this new Romanized tradition grew in power, it began to rewrite the past. The strong, active women of the Old Testament were reinterpreted as quiet and passive. The stories of female leaders were downplayed. Roman gender roles were presented as if they were timeless, universal truths, as if this was how it had always been. By the Middle Ages, the distortion was complete. The memory of women owning businesses, inheriting land, and leading communities in the ancient Near East was almost entirely erased, replaced by a Roman model of female submission. This isn't just a boring history lesson. This matters today because this distorted history has been used for centuries to limit women's potential and create guilt and shame. Millions of people still struggle with ideas about their worth that are based on a historical falsehood. Understanding this timeline helps us separate culture from faith and human institutions from their spiritual source. It's not about attacking any religion. It's about reclaiming a truth that was lost. The women of the ancient Middle East were not invisible, powerless, or silent. Their stories were buried under layers of a later, more restrictive culture. By digging up the real history, we don't just learn about the past, we empower ourselves in the present. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join us for more deep dives into history.